This conference will now be recorded.
Any questions? Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, you preempted.
I was curious about something you were talking about yesterday about the path of the mathematician. And then you said something about the Kundalini, the chakras, and then it just goes. And I was just curious if you could say a little bit more about it.
When we think about consciousness, the thought about consciousness, because it has its unique quality to appear in its referent, in the consciousness to which it refers, as it vanishes, leaves us in the experience of consciousness. In other words, with many concepts, for instance, the concept of a table and the object table, the concept and its referent, the object to which it refers, belong to two realms that have nothing in common, that never intersect. You see, the realm of concept and the realm of tables. We have never seen a concept hopping around, sitting on the table. You see, meaning that the realm of concepts and where the realm in which the concepts have their existence and the realm in which the tables have their existence apparently don't have a clear common space. They don't intersect. However, that is different in the case of consciousness, because the concept of consciousness has its existence in consciousness. Okay. That being established, this type of concepts, therefore, because of this unique quality, that their leading qualities, they lead to their referent, they deliver their referent experientially. Therefore, there is a possibility that if we think about awareness or about reality, that this thought will lead to the experience of this reality. In other words, the thought about consciousness is because it is different from the usual concept, has the power to lead us to the experience of reality. In other words, the path of the mathematicians, I mean, it's a joke, right? You don't need to be a mathematician to take this path. But I was using this term in order to make a distinction with the path of the physicist, because the physicist deals only with material objects, right? A phenomena. Whereas a mathematician doesn't need phenomena. He doesn't, or she doesn't, need to conduct experiment. She doesn't care. She proceeds solely through concepts. However, she has to start from something. In the case of mathematics, she starts from some axioms and mathematical ideas that are defined a priori, such a set, the element of a set, the empty set, and a few other concepts. And from these limited number of concepts and definitions and axioms, then the entire structure can be built. In the case of awareness, we don't need to start from a set of axioms, because we can start from the experience of awareness, and that's the foundation, that's the basis, from which we start, to which we return. So my explanation explains why, unlike the usual purely conceptual thought that never really seemed to reach reality, at least the phenomenal reality, because it seems to be forever separate from it. In the case of the thought about consciousness, it has this efficiency. So the path of the mathematician is, if you will, the path, we could say, through concepts, through ideas. It happens through thinking about the truth, about awareness, but it has to be for those who are inclined to do so. You cannot force it, but for those to which it comes naturally, who have, for some reason, a natural interest for this path, it will work. By thinking about awareness, this thought will lead them repetitively to the experience of it, and from this experience of it, clarification will take place. That's all.
And were you saying that that path was particularly corresponded to a Kundalini energy experience, or no?
No.
No.
No. I would take a Kundalini in a symbolic interpretation. And it has to do with the energy of desire. When we are in ignorance, the desire is directed towards phenomena, fear and desire. We desire that some phenomena take place, and we desire that some phenomena don't take place. Symbolically, of course, the origin of the desire is awareness, which symbolically is localized outside the body, beyond the brain, beyond the mind, in the upper chakra. From there, the flow of desire goes down. It separates first in two branches, Ida and Pingala. One corresponds to the tamasic aspect, meaning the passive aspect, and the other one to the active aspect of ignorance. And in other words, ignorance manifests both in the form of agitation and passivity, but passivity in the sense of reluctance to know, reluctance to change, inertia, reluctance to closeness to new ideas, to new possibilities. So going down, the desire then separates in a multiplicity of desires of various objects. Symbolically, these two main channels are divided into nadis, each nadi subdividing like the roots of a plant, right? Into the multiplicity of desire. A drastic change occurs when we become aware of the possibility that awareness is not separate, not limited, but universal. That corresponds, in fact, to a glimpse, and symbolically, all the goddess Kundalini, which was asleep in the lower chakra, in the Mula chakra, symbolically becomes alive and wakes up, and in one single shot pierces all the chakras and reaches its goal, which is awareness. That's the awakening of Kundalini. That's a symbolic description of the glimpse. The outcome of that is that there is a complete reversal in the object of the desire. Whereas before the desire was disseminated towards a multiplicity of objects, now all the energy of desire is refocused, unified, and symbolically through the center, now through one channel, the channel of non-duality, called Sushumna in this tradition, moves in opposite direction, not towards the objects, but towards the reality of awareness, right? And that's a description of the direct path. So you will see that the teacher of the direct path, the ascension of Kundalini is described as a, you have this word in English, a fulguration, fulgur? No, you don't have that. Okay, as a flash of lightning, you're like a zoom. In the progressive path, they describe that very differently. They describe that as moving from one step to the next step to the next step. The final step being, of course, the glimpse. So on the progressive path, they describe kind of a preparation which is useful stage by stage for those who are not open to the direct path, for those who are not ready to challenge the belief that awareness is separate and limited. So those, they have to, you find that in Buddhism also, you know, there are several vehicles in Buddhism. I'm not as versed into that, but there are smaller, there is, you can walk, you can take a car, or you can take a jet in Buddhism, right?
Thank you.
So I used to study mathematics, but I don't get this path of mathematician. For me, if the axiom is to experience, if the axiom is the experience of consciousness.
But it's no longer an axiom. Remember, we are not doing mathematics really. We are doing physics, right? Okay.
Yeah, in the language that you just spoke of.
Yeah.
The axiom is usually a starting point. But the experiencing of consciousness, the way I see it, it's also the end point.
Yeah. It both because it starts as a glimpse which opens us to the possibility. And in fact, the fact that it opens us to the possibility is because it shows us the reality of it. But then, although the reality of it has been seen, the the leftovers of ignorance in the mind as belief systems and in the body as feeling systems immediately take hold of that which has been intuitively seen, and then there is a work to do to clean up, so to speak. Since you speak of mathematics, it's often the case. If you think, for instance, when we do math, we have first, if not like we do it in America by doing calculations, but let's say at a higher level, college or graduate level, we have first an intuition of the solution. And then we need, although this intuition was the right one, we need then to clean it up. You see, we need to clean it up. It's not sufficient to have the intuition, oh, I'm going to try that, and I'm going to do, oh, that must be the way. But then we have to clean up, we have to cross the T's, to dot the I's, to make it foolproof, right? We have to do this work after the intuition. It's the same thing here.
What is the cleanup in this case?
What?
When you speak of the cleanup as a metaphor, say cleanup in developing math theory, you have intuition about something, then you have to do cleanup. How does that translate in the case of approaching the truth, understanding the truth?
Yeah, that's what I've just said. The first intuition is the right one. So the first intuition, we go right to the place, if you will. If we have the experience of the independence, of the primacy of the reality of awareness. But this first glimpse is not sufficient to completely erase all the belief system and feeling systems we have adopted over the years of ignorance. So they seem to be there. They seem to be still in existence, and they still seem to be efficient.
Yes.
But because the truth has been seen, in fact, it's like they have caught the Ebola virus. You see, they don't realize it right away, but after a while, they are cooked. But it may take some time. So, and we can facilitate the process also.
Yes.
We can. We can be like the bad nurse, you know, the bad nurse in the hospital. There is the IV and
yeah. Okay, could you clarify a little bit? This is a probably long subject, but maybe I would like to start a little bit clarifying this process, what you call the cleanup process. If I go back to one of the questions I asked you a few weeks ago over the webcast, I think I asked what is the most practical approach to the truth, and your response was basically thinking about the truth is the most direct approach. Well, it is beautiful to think about the truth. I enjoy listening to people here. I enjoy listening to you. It brings me a sense of inner peace. Sometimes I get this sense of inner peace spontaneously, and I don't have to think of anything. But the point is that when this inner peace is felt, the thinking subsides. I don't feel a need to think. It just
absolutely not. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yes. Maybe sometimes I'm thinking that I don't know how to think about the truth without your help. or help from people.
Well,
Like,
in a sense, the function of the teacher is twofold. One is to introduce the truth and lead to this intuition, to this recognition. And then, as this investigation goes on, because it's not only on the intellectual level, but let's say on the intellectual level, one of the functions of the teacher is also to help bringing this reasoning to a close. In other words, the student at some point wants confirmation. Although his or her intuition is correct, right? They know it's correct, but somehow, the fact that the teacher says, yes, that's correct, because it's okay. If, let's say, to take an analogy with the mathematics, let's assume a student tries to prove a theorem, right? And is pretty sure that his proof is correct because he has checked it several times, he's pretty sure. If he's a very good mathematician, he will be sure. He doesn't need to ask, right? But he will then go to the teacher and say, look, here is what I found. What do you think? And the teacher said, oh, that's nice. That's correct. It works. And then he knew already it works, right? He knew already it was correct. But then the fact that the teacher approves of it puts an end, to his research. So then he says, okay, next, right? But then,
yes.
So that's another function of the teacher, if you wish, some sort of confirmation. But we have to be careful. A confirmation, it is not the same as a belief. In other words, when the teacher confirms something like that, he better make sure that the student has understood. So it's only when the student presents his or her understanding, meaning, in fact, his or her experience, that the teacher then at some point sees yes. Just like this extraordinary, because we are still living on this analogy with mathematics, that when two mathematicians are working on the same problem, right? And let's say they are on the blackboard and they are both working on the same thing, they are not finding it. They have been working for 2 hours. They have not found it, but they have already envisioned all kinds of possibilities, all kinds of avenues, and there is a little missing link.
Yeah.
One of them all of a sudden says, oh, that's it, let's do this, instantaneously. The other one, because he is ready, it's like the collapse of the wave function. Instantaneously, the other one, oh yes, I should have thought of it. I should have thought of that. And then there is this immediate certainty. So that we cannot explain that. So that they have understood the same thing. So the teacher is going to confirm only when the same type of communication, you see, takes place. Only when the teachers know, like these two mathematicians, they know they have got it. So when the teacher feels the student has got it on this, he says yes, and that puts an end to the search. Why? Because it would be dangerous to confirm something which is false. But there is no harm in confirming something which is true.
Yes, thank you for that. I see the sense of that sometimes. what sometimes seems to be missing is the question that comes to mind, what's the point of us discussing whatever we are discussing, unless it is related, connected to this experience of consciousness and ultimately the happiness. Sometimes I'm almost not connecting. If we end up discussing something like intellectual, conceptual, where's the connection with the reality? And this connection I lose. So once I lose that connection, it's like, doesn't matter what we say. We could just talk, whatever.
Oh, yes, and that's very important. We have to understand that understanding about the truth is not intellectual but experiential. In other words, there is this tendency to add the label intellectual to anything we understand about awareness, which is in fact a derogatory label. And it misses the mark because it assumes that understanding something about consciousness is similar to the form of understanding I was mentioning earlier on that remains within the realm of concepts, never intersecting with the level of reality. So then, because we have a lot of past experiences of concepts leading nowhere, right, in and by themselves, we assume that it is the case of all possible concepts, and we miss the mark because we forget the efficiency I've mentioned of the concept of awareness. Then we put onto this experience, this glimpse, this understanding about consciousness, the label of uselessness that we tend to put on everything intellectual, like discussing about the gender of the angels, right? Yeah. So we have to understand that it is, in fact, the most practical thing we may think about. It is just the opposite of the objection that it is intellectual, because if we don't know that through which we know everything we know, what can we know? You know, it is precisely that which is the most fundamental. And then you said, well, I don't see it's intellectual. I don't see how that connects possibly to happiness. But I'm going to tell you how that connects to happiness, and you'll see.
I'd like to clarify a little bit.
Go ahead.
Maybe this is the important point in my confusion. The intellectual, quote unquote, the intellectual discussion makes sense if it's related to the experience of reality, ultimately the inner peace, experiencing the inner peace. That's how I see it. And the inner peace, when it's experienced, stops the discussion for me.
Yeah, because the discussion is a means to access
Right.
the inner peace. Once you have caught the fish, you don't care about the fishing line. or the hook.
So I'm not sure what I'm cleaning here, because if I have the experience of inner peace, what's there to clean up?
Oh, if you have the experience of inner peace, there is no need for even a question.
Well, I guess my mind wanted to understand your point of view.
Yeah. No. What I'm saying, if we have the experience, the inner peace is self-explanatory.
Mhm.
But to what I wanted to say, to show to you how, what the connection, or to, perhaps not to you, but to whoever may be interested, the connection between that which we are talking about and the reason why it's eminently practical and inner peace or happiness is this, is that at the core, that which the peace pooper, is death, is the belief that we die. And that's a peace pooper. And that's something we have early on. Even children have nightmares. So this peace pooper, the understanding of the universal nature of awareness means awareness doesn't die. So that eliminates the peace pooper. So once or the party pooper, if you will. So once the party pooper has been eliminated, once the parents have taken the car, and are off to visit their own parents, then the kids at home, they go to the cave, they take the wine, they pump up the volume of the music, and they start smoking the pot.
I'd like to talk to you once the pooper comes to me.
Just a quick one, Francis, actually maybe not quick, but the question is short. So, you mentioned earlier this today that one of the most important glimpses is that there's only one reality. So, and then you mentioned also that, you encouraged us to think about it and keep digging. So what are the implications that one should, go down the paths to really understand, that there's one reality? What are the implications of that?
Oh, there are many.
If you can give us some pointers to go down to think about.
Yeah. So if you will, it's like a mathematical theory with only one axiom, right? There is only one reality, right? So if there is only one reality, the real me is this reality, right? And if there is only one reality, it means that the real me is also this awareness is not something which is solely manifested by this body, but it is a universal thing. So as a result, there is no death. But a second corollary is that we share it with all beings. So that's important. So then love comes into play, right? And also because it is as I said, the party pooper being out of the way, life becomes a celebration, because when we are under the spell of ignorance, there are two attitudes. Either life is too short and I have to experience everything. And we cannot experience everything, right? We cannot at the same time learn how to play tennis. That's a lifetime already assignment. So we cannot do tennis, golf, badminton, cricket, football, soccer. You know, I am trying to please everyone here. Yeah, we cannot. You cannot learn all of that. Life is way too short, so it creates some kind of agitation. We go from tennis to this, and with the relationship, we go from this to this to this one. You know, because it's the same, right? On the other hand, the other attitude is, oh, it's not worth it. Because what for? I'm going to die. So there is two extremes, you know, which makes life, the possibility of enjoying life, it makes it impossible, the harmony in life. Whereas, well, if we are universal, this universe experiences itself through this vehicle, and all that it has to do is to make this experience perfect through this vehicle, knowing that we experience everything through all vehicles. You see what I mean? So then we are exactly, there is no passivity, no hyperactivity. There is no rajasic and no tamasic. No tamasic and no rajasic. We are sattvic, right?
That's good. Something for me to think about now.
But there are more, because then, you know, it's like in mathematics, you have a few first direct corollaries, like the one, but then there are sub-corollaries. There are many. The arborescence is infinite.
Thank you.
Hi, Francis. So I had a question about my experience when I sort of focus on or defocus my attention, then I can find the space where my thoughts appear, all my sensations and perceptions appear. I can't locate it, so it doesn't seem to have any objective qualities, and it seems totally reasonable to surmise that other people have the same sort of unlocalized, sort of non-objective experience. So my question is, you know, what is the relationship between that experience, that subjective experience that I have, and pure consciousness?
If this space elapses in time, it is still an object of the mind. You see? Because consciousness is timeless. The experience of consciousness is the experience of happiness, inner peace, absence of desire. It can be there in the presence of objects. Objects are not an impediment, right? But the glimpse itself, the experience of pure consciousness, there are no object present. Mind space, if you will, it's still kind of object which is superimposed onto consciousness. It is still, if you will, a representation in the mind of consciousness. The map is not the territory. We know what we have to understand is what does it feel like? What is the experience of consciousness like? And the answer is not like something that we can see, but rather it feels like happiness, like love, beauty, intelligence, freedom. You see all these quality, inner peace, absence of worries. So that is a general, if you will, a quality of the experience of consciousness, which is of course non-objective. These are noumenal qualities, non-phenomenal qualities, and they can coexist with the presence of phenomena. So it is important to understand that the possibility of the experience of pure consciousness, of the glimpse, because a lot gets revealed in this way. But to become addicted to this experience would be a mistake. It happens, but then we have to move to the next, to transition from, in technical term, nirvikalpa samadhi to sahaja samadhi, and understand that whatever appears in consciousness is the shape consciousness is taking at that moment. So there is no need to wait to have the experience of consciousness, because the consciousness is precisely here at that moment. You know, so it's, in fact, it would be an escape from consciousness to expect for it to appear, whereas it is appearing in its manifested form at that very moment. It's, I think it's one of the advantages of Kashmirian Shaivism, of the Tantric path, over some traditional Vedantic path, not all of them, because in the Vedantic path, the emphasis is on pure consciousness. It is a good thing because it is a tool which is used to take the student to this experience, but we shouldn't stay there. You see, if we stay there, we are stuck in a certain way, because there is always a striving and a kind of refusal of the divine energies, if you will, that are always present at every moment.
Just a follow up to that, you mentioned that there needs to be permanence to this, whatever this non-objective experience is. And it seems to me that I can access it whenever I want, which is to say that it always seems to be there, even though I'm not always seemingly sort of, when I'm focused on objects or things out there, quote unquote, that it seems like it's not there, but then I can always find it when I want to. And I also seem to remember as a child going there by accident, or having that experience by accident and finding it extremely restful, but not understanding what it actually was. I thought it was just because I was defocusing and just staring off into the distance, but it was this feeling. So
yeah, well, there are mind states that are the byproduct of the experience of pure awareness. Often a moment of understanding leaves us in this not knowing state, which may feel like a blank state because the mind is almost stopped or has slowed down a lot, right? But it would be a mistake to understood the mind state, which is on the foreground for the experience of consciousness, which remains always invisible to the mind, and which is only visible to itself in the form that I have described of peace, of the repetition of glimpses act like a solvent of the misery. We don't really notice necessarily when it happens, but in hindsight, at some point we notice that, oh, my life has changed for the better. You see, and that's all we can say. You see, it is the impending doom that was hovering above our head has disappeared. It's nowhere to be found any longer.
would you suggest that it's helpful to just rest in that, whatever that is.
Yeah, it
or-
happens. It happens by itself. We cannot pull on the plants to make them grow faster, especially asparagus. They grow fast, but if you try to pull on the asparagus, it doesn't work. It breaks quite fast.
Thank you.
So I'm not a mathematician. And so I don't think about that. I'm more of a body type, I guess, that I intuitively make decisions. And I've been a little confused about, I guess, some of your language and what practically I could be doing. Yesterday, you mentioned experiments, and then you talk about investigations, and I'm wondering, this is the conversation of, am I on the right path? So for instance, I've been meditating for, some time now, and I independently came to the understanding that, hey, these things are popping up and I'm not thinking them, and they come up and then they leave, and sometimes I get caught on them and I'm chewing them over, and then I go, oh, wait, I'm thinking, and I drop them. And so, I can see that, I am not my thoughts. And then the next step is, my feelings and body sensations. I, can tell when something comes up and going, oh, okay, I see this, I'm feeling tense, whatever it is, let's just watch it, and it eventually goes away. Or if I'm with someone like a loved one or something, and someone says something, and then there's this, oh my gosh, right in front of me, and it's like, calm down. I can see how I'm what I would call investigating those. As to the body and the doer, I'm kind of lost on that. That I understand the concept of I'm not the body, but the investigation is going nowhere. So that's on one, what I consider a path. Then when you started talking, when I heard you say that we are universal consciousness, and the corollary is that we're not separate, I saw that as, oh, okay, I can investigate that when I'm relating to someone and seeing that, oh, am I, aware that we're separate and we're just chatting and talking and, like, where do you live? What's your name? Things like that. Or am I aware of them as, as we're the same? So I don't know where the question is, but I'm asking for help in that area.
I think the first thing would be to be very clear, or try to be as clear as possible, experientially, not conceptually, experientially, about what is it that you call I. Because you use I. And I kind of need to know, in order to answer your question, what really you mean by I. What experientially, what is your experience of I?
Well, I would say that at times I'm an independent human being relating to people here. And then at other times when I'm, I catch myself, I'm aware, I realize that, oh, okay, no, I'm not this independent,
Yeah, but your question, you are answering me by telling me that you are two things.
right?
So my follow-up question to you is which one?
Okay, so then I'm an independent individual,
You are an independent individual.
right? I'm starting from that premise.
How do you know that? Your independence, you mean, by independent, you mean separate, right?
Separate, correct.
Okay. How do you experientially verify that you are a separate individual?
So I exist in this body and I've operated in the world,
Okay, you exist in this body.
right?
Where in the body?
It's difficult to pinpoint it,
Well, if you say something, I ask you to say things
right?
that come from your experience.
Correct.
So when you say, I am in the body, are you speaking from experience or from what you have learned from your parents or from society? Because that's true. Everybody believes I am in the body, but no surgeon has ever found an eye in a body. They have found a liver, a spleen, a brain, but
Right.
never an eye, or it would be a Nobel Prize in medicine, I guess.
Right. So it would be the historical, cultural identification as,
Well, in other words, what you are telling me is that you are taking for granted what you have learned from society.
correct.
But then that was not my question, because my question was what you experience as being you. For instance, in this moment, I am speaking to you.
Correct.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
So could we agree that you are that, whatever that is, which is hearing my words,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. So then you are that. Now, as I speak, my words generate thoughts in you, right?
Yes.
You are also that which thinks these thoughts.
Yes.
Just as you perceive my words, you perceive your thoughts, right?
Yes.
You also perceive your body if you are hungry, if it's too cold, right?
Correct.
You also perceive the world around you, around this body, right?
Correct.
So basically, would you agree that before you are anything else, you are whatever it is that perceives and understands? Would you
Yes.
agree to that?
Yes.
Right? So that it's very important to understand what I am before anything else, what I for certain know to be. Because then if you think about what you were saying, I am in this body, is that your experience? You said no. I have heard that from others. But what is your real experience? What is the relation between you, who is hearing my words, and your body? Is it not true that your body appears to you? When you look in the mirror, you look at your body, you touch your body, you feel the hunger or whatever, or the pain, so the body appears to you,
Yes.
right? If you were not there as awareness, would you have a body? You awareness. No, you couldn't, because you wouldn't be there,
Yes.
right? In order to have a body, awareness has to be there first. The owner of the body has to be there, or the perceiver of the body has to be there before the body. Besides, what we call the body is a concept which refers to a set of perceptions. When you were a newborn baby, you didn't know I have a body.
Correct.
You had perceptions, right?
Sure.
Pain, hunger, thirst, to hold, to cold, to warm, what you saw, noise. But your body, you learn over time to discover some limits, right? But that was something that was in the beginning different from you. You see, because you perceived it like the world, like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that the first step is this switch in understanding about what we have, what we are. Let's assume you have a terrible car accident and you show up in front of St. Peter. And St. Peter tells you, well, you have been almost perfect in your life, but not completely perfect. Because there was this story with this floozy and so because of that, you are not going to hell, but the boss has give me the power to offer you a deal. And the deal, you have two choices. First choice, you keep your body, you lose your awareness. Second choice, you keep the awareness, you lose the body. What is it going to be?
Yeah, number two.
Hey, smart choice, right? Which means that intuitively, we know that we are awareness before we are the body. You see? So now, so what is then important is now we have introduced the possibility of that they are not the same. That awareness can be somehow different in kind from the body and also from the mind, from the thoughts, because just as you perceive the bodily sensation, you perceive the thoughts, right? So then you are open. I'm not, you cannot decide yet, but you have introduced a distinction between you as awareness, the real you, and the possibility that you are something else and somehow something bigger than the body or the mind. But the first choice is the one you have made in front of St. Peter, now you cannot go back, is that you are awareness rather than the body. If it turns out that awareness and the body are the same, you're cooked. When the body dies, awareness dies, right?
Correct.
But if by any chance it turns out that they are not the same, then there is another option. So having made this first decision, this first choice, being open to all the possibilities I have just mentioned, then the next step of the investigation is this awareness precisely limited by the body, dependent on the body, or is it the opposite? Is it that the body is dependent on the awareness? And how do I know? So the first step of this investigation is to start from the other side. Before I believe that the awareness was dependent upon the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to question that and to ask myself, what evidence do I have? You see, because I have taken that from society, from the parents and so on, and I've kept that in a twilight zone, never really investigated it because I thought it's not that important. There are more important things in life, such as the floozies and so it turns so now let's revisit what evidence do I have that awareness is dependent upon the body. And that's something I cannot do it for you. But if you believe that you have some evidence, you can bring it to me. But other than that, you can easily do this investigation because that's what it is about now, the investigation. And the first step of the investigation is to find out, what do I know? How can I be so sure, and how can people around me be so sure that their awareness is dependent upon the body? And you will discover, but that you have to discover. Now, don't believe me. You see, you will discover that you have zero evidence. But don't believe me. You have to do this investigation. And to do this investigation is possible. And moreover, it is possible to achieve an absolute certainty that you have no evidence that awareness is dependent upon the body. And even more, it's like in an infomercial, you can have one for $29.99, and now you can have two. So now, even more, not only can you acquire an absolute certainty that you have right now no evidence, but moreover, you can acquire an absolute certainty that you will never have such evidence, because having such evidence is an impossibility. That's more. That's twice for the price of one. Two you know that I've become American, right? You can tell over the years, it grows on you. So then you are almost there, because your life is completely different from that moment on. Because this knowledge that you have absolutely no certainty that awareness is dependent upon the body gives you permission to try to live your life from the other perspective. As long as you believe one way, you have no other choice.
Right.
It's like a guy who has always lived in the same country, and the floozies are all blonde. So, I keep up with the metaphor, right? So, enough with the floozies. So then you can, because now this possibility is open to you, you can try to live your life from the opposite perspective. That's what I say all the time. So, but what is important is what you have understood, that you are awareness before you are anything else.
Thank you.
Francis, I have this specific question from today's meditation. I've heard this before too, and I thought I was doing it, but I don't think so. When you say, notice that all perceptions, bodily sensations, thoughts all appear in the same space. I don't feel space. That's the truth. I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything tangible, anything like where it's, I keep looking, where is this coming when the thought is coming? I just know there is a thought. I just know there's bodily sensation. I know there is sound or something else or smell. I feel, but I don't see space.
Okay. Would you differentiate between a sensation in your left shoulder and one in your right hip?
If I tried to go to the source of sensation, I could, but
In other words, don't you have, or if you, let's take another example. Let's say you have your eyes closed, right? And if I tell you, reach towards an object 3 feet at a 45-degree angle above your right shoulder.
okay, there's a spatial awareness then.
I mean, it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in other words, you have a space, the notion of a space in which your body appears and in which your body moves,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
But that's a concept, though. That's based on the concept, right? Not experience. I mean, space is there, but it's because I've been told there is space before this room was built and before the sofa was put and everything else.
if what you mean to say is that ultimately there is no space, there is only awareness, yes, I agree with that. Everything appears in awareness. Awareness is a precursor of all spaces and of space-time, actually, both of the physical space-time and of the, but what is important is when we do these things in meditation, is not to try to find some logic to it. As I sometimes explain, let's say you go to a music teacher, a voice teacher, and this voice teacher say you, no, your voice is not resonating the way it should. Try to sing in this cup. It doesn't mean anything to sing in the cup. Perhaps to you, it doesn't mean anything. Fine. But to another voice student, it will mean something. They are going to try to sing in the cup, and magically the teacher says, sorry. The teacher says, oh, see, now your resonators are open or whatever. Now that's what I meant. That's why. So keep the experience. If you need to go back to it, buy yourself a cup and do it. You know, don't take my cup. You see, so in other words, who cares about the physical adequacy of the visualization that is suggested by the teacher, provided the goal is reached? You see, so it's the same here. So if I can explain using still metaphors for that, but actually we do that perhaps tomorrow in a slightly different way. So I keep that for tomorrow during the session, because, but the idea is first that it is obvious that in our experience, there is only one space. We can call it awareness space, or we can call it mind space. It doesn't matter much. That which matters is that there is only one space. Why? Because my perception of the cup doesn't appear there. The cup I see appears exactly in the same space where the concept of the cup appears, where my bodily sensations appear, right?
Yeah.
For the very simple reason that my perception of the cup and your perceptions of the cup are different.
Yep.
Therefore, because they are different, neither you nor I perceive the cup.
Agreed.
We each have a perception of what we call the cup, right? That's very French, and the cup. I have to make sure I don't lose my style. So it is true that everything is within. It is false that experientially there are two spaces. That's very important because most of the time, everybody believes the rest, the opposite. Everybody believes experientially, I have two spaces, the one in which my thoughts appear and the one in which the cup appears. But so what I want to do is to bring you back to the fact that there is only one space. Why? Because if there is only one space, the world is in it. The separation is abolished. And it turns out to be true. I mean, it turns out to be our true way of perceiving before the concept of an outer world comes in. You see, it is the direct perception. In the direct perception, there is only one space. Now, we could say the objection could be, well, that's very childish. Of course, the newborn child doesn't make this distinction, but we know better because we have walked in the world, we have touched objects, and we have this knowledge that there is an external world. Maybe. And I'm not challenging that because that's, again, the goal is not to decide whether there is an external world or not. In other words, the goal of this exercise is not to decide between the realism hypothesis and the idealism hypothesis. For the very simple reason that we cannot decide. So it's a waste of time to try to decide. But what is interesting is that this view, this natural view of the world without separation, in which there is only one space, this one is consistent with my real body being the universe. So by using this trick of coming back to this, I could say, innocent view of the newborn child, it turns out that this innocent view, instead of being childish, is in fact the one which is in line with a much deeper understanding, the understanding that there is only one reality. If there is only one reality, the reality that perceives this universe is the reality of the universe. Therefore, the universe is the body of this consciousness. So, although this attitude, one space, may seem childish, in fact, it's very interesting. Then, what happens is the following. The view of two spaces becomes simply a tool. It becomes simply a tool which we use. If we need to write Einstein's equation, of course, we need a four-dimensional space-time continuum, right? That's fine. I'm not saying that's stupid. No, it's very interesting, very intelligent, beautiful, many applications. But that's just a tool we use. If we need, for instance, to listen to music in a concert, what use is there to feel this separation? It turns out to be much nicer to feel that we are completely extended in the whole, and that the music is filling up our entire extended body. So you see, there are perks also that are attached to this view because we don't always do physics. You see? Yeah. So basically, so what it boils down to is this. Because this view, which we could, sometimes I call it the artistic view, or the naive view, or the original view. This view of the world should be our default state. You see? And then, whenever we need another view, we take the tool out of the toolbox and we take the different view. It doesn't prevent us from anything, knowing that each other view is going to have its limitations. But the view which is consistent with happiness is the childlike view. You know, that's very important.
Can I ask another question, please? Thank you. Because we use this term happiness.
Absence of burden, absence
So
of
black.
what
is-
what happens when the impending doom of death has vanished, when the parents have left the house.
Just make sure there's enough alcohol.
What?
Just make sure there's enough booze. That's it.
Yeah, and that they don't come back too soon.
No, the problem is we've always associated it with objective because that crack opens due to satisfaction from a person, situation, object, or whatever things. And you have to be, I'm sorry, you've not used this word, but it's maybe from my long-term Advaita thing. So I always thought, you know, Satchit and Ananda, that Ananda part was this bliss, whatever that was. And then I somehow thought, if you are this awareness, that's a new term I'm calling, to me, they're both the same, Brahman or whatever, is I expect to be content without a cause.
Yeah,
Is that the right understanding?
yeah, content without a cause, exactly.
And it's not the happiness from the objective. It's not like you're jumping up and down and like always laughing, blah, blah, blah. That because the life is going to go on, there's ups and downs, blah, blah, emotions, everything plays a part.
It's a form of peace, right? And it's inner peace, but inner peace is a precursor of joy. You know, my friend Ivan Amar once said, peace is joy at rest and joy is peace in motion. You see, so it's not peace between nations we are talking about, it's inner peace, it's shanti, right? It's what happens when we are unburdened, free, you know, because then we are open to whatever is going to happen. We are open for the party, you see.
All the time.
But if you are burdened, you go to the party, you don't enjoy it but if you are free and light and without burden, then you can have a good time.
Oh, sure.
Hi, Francis.
There.
We're talking about investigations. And my question is, along this mathematician's path, when you've investigated a few times, the questions don't hold as much power after some time. The question for you I have is, your path now, where do you find your questions and your answers, I guess?
Oh, I don't have questions, really. I have questions if you have questions. But I don't have questions, you know. I follow the stock market, I play tennis, I fix the garbage disposer.
Beautiful. Often I'll watch satsangs not having questions. But in watching, I'll have a question. A question will come up and I'll be, oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, if we don't have a question, there is no need to try to find one.
Right.
You see, it's especially if we are at peace. I mean, if it ain't broke, you know,
Right.
don't fix it, right? So if you are happy and at peace, you are perfectly realized. So don't seek anything else. It's and actually, when we are happy and at peace, it happens that we don't seek anything else. We are too busy doing what we are doing, or to think of doing something else. We are just right there, perfectly content. So the investigation should take place only if we detect a discontentment, or if it comes out of interest, because interest, there is a joyfulness to it. So these are and out of the two, the latter is the best when we investigate out of interest. Oh, that's nice, that's interesting. Let's find out. You know, I'm curious.
Thank you.
Francis, this one is very important one. We cover a lot today. We start from if you take the Kundalini yoga, if you take from Ajna, where is the intellectual understanding, to Sahasrara crown, where is there is a jump, and
I didn't speak about all of that.
yes.
No, I didn't say that Ajna Chakra was the intellectual understanding, that
No, it's
Sahasrara.
my cut.
Yeah, but you have to ask people who talk about that, not me. I didn't talk about
Yes.
that in these terms.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Okay.
Not really interested in this aspect of yoga.
Yes.
You know, the anahata being.
Okay,
no.
I said that through your words, through what we learned here, from conceptual understanding to glimpse, there is a jump, and you call it this understanding.
Yeah, what do you mean? But give me an example of concept, what you call conceptual understanding.
That I am unlimited awareness.
Is that understanding?
This is the concept. And by doing
But it sounds either it's an understanding that comes from an experience, or it is a belief.
No, I said about conceptual understanding.
But I don't understand what you mean by conceptual understanding in this case. That you are infinite, that awareness is infinite. It's a concept.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, whether that is true or not would be the understanding that brings an answer to this question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you get the glimpse. That's this way.
That would be an example of the glimpse.
Glimpse.
Yeah. For instance, another example of a glimpse is I am awareness. That's also a glimpse, very important glimpse. I am awareness rather than the body, like we discussed earlier on. That's a glimpse. Why? Because I have to look at I, what I mean by I have to look at awareness and say, yes, that's me. I and awareness, that's me. I recognize me. Yes, I am the one who is hearing. It's not somebody else who is hearing the words. So if I call awareness, that if to tell Francis, if you call awareness that which is hearing the words, then that's me, obviously, it's not somebody else. Therefore, I am awareness because I am the one hearing the word. That's an understanding because it's experiential.
And my intuition is this understanding of this glimpse is happening. Each moment is happening, but it's not enough intense to broke the cup of ignorance that I can jump like Archimedes. I got it.
There are several types of understanding, as I said. For instance, do you understand that you have no evidence that this awareness is limited? That's an understanding. It's not intellectual. I put a question to you. So try to think about it. Because the way you answer this question is to say, okay, I believe, for instance, let's assume awareness is dependent upon the body. How can I know? How can I know? So try to imagine a reason that leads you to believe that awareness is dependent upon the body. If you find a reason, bring it to me. But it may happen that as you try to find a reason, at some point, something comes to you, an understanding that could be expressed as such. Because everything that I know phenomenally appears in awareness. Everything that appears in awareness cannot give me any information on awareness. And therefore, I have no way to know, based upon my experience of the world, of the mind, and of the body, whether awareness is limited or not. Because that would be an information, a piece of information on awareness, and I have understood in a glimpse that whatever appears in awareness cannot give me any valid information on awareness. So I give you that. It's a statement. Anything that appears on awareness cannot give me any valid information on awareness. In the ancient China, the Zen students, they would receive a koan. It was a statement like that, and they had to think it out, think it over, up until all of a sudden, oh wow, yes, that's true. This transition is the glimpse from what did he mean? What did he mean? And all of a sudden you say, that's so obvious. You know, because anything, it's like that to try to give an explanation of the reason why I say that, it will be like something that appears, let's say you have a photographer, right? And the photographer takes pictures of the world, and not a picture of herself, not a picture of herself in the mirror, of course. It's a metaphor. But picture of dogs, of cats, of birds, of trees, of flowers, right? Now, that is that which appears to the photographer, the birds, the trees, the flowers. Do they give the photographer any information on the color of her eyes, the color of her hair, her age? Obviously not. In other words, these phenomenal elements that appear to the photographer give zero information to the photographer about her age, etc., right? About her personal, why? Because she is the one who perceives all of that. and that which is perceived is different from her. And because that which is perceived is different from her, it has no access to her, and therefore it cannot contain any information about her. These are ways, if you will, that I try to nail this scuffing. But once we understand that, it's an important glimpse.